So next we take up the study of the skeleton of rabbit. Now the skeleton of any vertebrate, for example, including rabbit, is divisible into two main parts. One is two main parts. One is an axial part comprising the skull, the vertebral column, sternum and ribs. Skull is present, safely protected by the skull. The vertebral column is present along the back and consists of a number of individual units called vertebrae. In the chest region, the vertebrae have ribs attached to them, and together with the ribs, the vertebrae in the chest region, the ribs and the sternum or breastbone together comprise the thoracic cage. Now this thoracic cage protects the lungs and the heart that are located inside the thoracic cavity. The second main part is the appendicular part comprising bones that are present in the appendages. By appendages we refer to the hands, the forelimbs or the hands, and the forelimbs and the hind limbs. Forelimbs are attached to the pectoral girdle or the shoulder girdle, and hind limbs similarly are attached to the pelvic girdle. So the appendicular part comprises the forelimb bones, and the pectoral girdle, the corresponding girdle, pectoral girdle. Now what are these girdles? The girdles, two girdles are present in the body of any vertebrate. Say we are dealing with the rabbit. So two girdles are present, one in the chest region, that is called the pectoral girdle, to which the forelimbs are attached, and a pelvic girdle in the waist region, to which the hind limbs are attached. So the girdles therefore provide for the attachment of the limb bones of the forelimb as well as of the hind limb. So the appendicular part comprises therefore the forelimb bones and the pectoral girdle, and the hind limb bones and the pelvic girdle. Coming to of course, the skull is excluded from the syllabus, so we will not study the skull. We will take up the vertebral column. The individual units are called the vertebrae. The individual units are called the vertebrae. The vertebrae and the vertebral column are located along the back, and they provide support to the thoracic case, as I've already said, through the ribs and the sternum, as well as muscles of the back. So, vertebrae, we have a number of vertebrae in the vertebral column, and they include the cervical, depending upon the place where they are situated. They are called cervical vertebrae. Now, cervical vertebrae are present in the cervical region or the neck region. So, there are 7, the number is fixed in mammals. There are 7 cervical vertebrae. Following the cervical vertebrae, we have the thoracic vertebrae, or in the thoracic region, we have 12 to 13 thoracic vertebrae. Then we have the lumbar region, comprising 5 to 6 lumbar vertebrae, and finally we have the caudal region, lumbar region. Then we have the sacral region, the sacral region has 5 sacral vertebrae, and finally we have the caudal region or the tail region, caudal region. And since rabbit possesses quite a long tail, the number of caudal vertebrae in the caudal region, they are about 16 in number. Now, coming to the cervical vertebrae, the first cervical vertebra out of the 7 is called the atlas vertebra. Next is called the vertebra that is present in the neck region, that is called the axis vertebra. Then we have a typical cervical. So, so one atlas, one axis, and then we have 5 typical cervicals. Total 7 cervical vertebrae. Thoracic vertebrae 12 to 13. The anterior ones are called anterior thoracic, very easily identified from their long backwardly directed neural spine. I will come to that. And then we have the posterior thoracic, shorter, bulkier posterior thoracic. Then we have the lumbar region, anterior lumbar. First 1 or 2 are called anterior lumbar, and the rest are called, out of 5 or 6, posterior lumbar. Then we have the sacral region, comprising a composite sacrum, and finally we have the caudal region, comprising the caudal vertebra or vertebra referring to the tail region, 16 in number, because rabbit possesses a fairly long tail. Now, let us therefore next come to each of these vertebrae in the vertebral column. Now, the first cervical is called the atlas vertebra because it has the responsibility of carrying the skull. So, this is the atlas vertebra, so named because the atlas vertebra has the responsibility of supporting the skull. Now, the atlas vertebra anteriorly has 2 surfaces for the 2 occipital condyles of the skull. Now, skull at its basal region possesses 2 protuberances, 2 projections. They are called occipital condyles, one on each side, and the 2 occipital condyles are supported on these facets for occipital condyles. Then we have, but before that, let us discuss the characters of, general characters of a vertebra. You are going to Atlas, let us discuss the general characters of a vertebra. Now a vertebra, in order to be a vertebra, must possess general characters. General characters. What are the general characters of a vertebra? The vertebra has several general characters. Similarly, a limb bone has several general characters. The characters differ according to the nature of the bone. So, general characters of a vertebra. So, a vertebra generally has a central canal that is called the neural canal. Neural canal, remember, through the vertebral column, the brain is continued as the spinal cord. The brain is located inside the skull and it is continued posteriorly as the spinal cord through the vertebral column. So, one of the functions of the vertebral column, therefore, is also to protect the spinal cord. So, there is a central canal through which the spinal cord passes, that is called the neural canal. Then surrounding the neural canal, around the neural canal, the body of the vertebra is called the neural arch. Neural arch. Now from this neural arch, dorsally, there is a projection, usually spine side, as you can see in this, there is a spinous projection arising from the neural arch. So this is the neural canal. Surrounding the neural canal, you have the neural arch, and from this neural arch arise several projections. One of them is this mid-dorsal spinous projection that is called neural spine. So from the neural arch arises the neural spine, dorsally, neural spine, a spinous projection. Then on the sides we have a pair of, as in this case, flat, broad processes transversely present, so they are called transverse processes. They are called transverse processes because they arise and they are located, they are present transverse to the main axis, so they are called transverse processes. Then, within the body of the transverse process, you can see in the cervical vertebrae a small opening that is called the vertebraterial canal. So this is that vertebraterial canal present on the body of the transverse process close to the neural arch. So this is the vertebraterial canal. For the passage of the vertebral artery. So vertebraterial canal, the compound word. So it is meant for the passage of the vertebral artery. Then coming to then there is what is known as, of course, that is not prominent here, the base of the vertebra. The base of the vertebra is called centrum. Of course, here centrum is greatly reduced. I will tell the purpose why it is greatly reduced. So this is that centrum, reduced centrum. So this is the remnant of centrum, the centrum that is left behind. This is the way. So this is that remnant of the centrum which now I am holding. This is the neural spine. So neural arch, neural canal, neural arch, neural spine, transverse processes, then vertebraterial canal, one on each side. Then this is the remnant of the centrum. Centrum or base is greatly reduced, and on either side of the centrum in the atlas vertebra we have again two facets for similarly the next vertebra, that is the axis, and the lower part. So this is the axis. The axis anteriorly possesses a pair of projections which find surfaces for attachment in the atlas posteriorly. Now, why the centrum is reduced? That is because atlas vertebra must have the mobility in the neck region, carrying the head. The atlas vertebra can move either side, left or right, and then because of this mobility that is required in the neck region, the atlas vertebra has almost no or a very reduced centrum. So behind this centrum on either side we have those two facets for the next vertebra, that is the axis vertebra. So next come to the axis vertebra. Now the axis vertebra, between the atlas vertebra and the axis vertebra, there must be some mobility. So the axis vertebra anteriorly has a tooth-like projection, Dantapuri, a tooth-like projection that is called the odontoid process. So the axis vertebra has the odontoid process. Odontoid process, tooth-like odontoid process. Now this odontoid process is accommodated on the lower side of the neural canal, so that these two, the atlas and the axis, form a pivot joint. So around this pivot joint, the atlas can move slightly left and right, carrying the head with it. So whenever we move our head to the left region or to the right region, so the atlas vertebra also moves on either side of this axis vertebra. So the attachment or the articulation of these two vertebrae, first one is called atlas, second one is called axis, is called a pivot joint, because the atlas, it has to provide for some movement in the neck region to the atlas vertebra. The atlas vertebra carries the head or the skull on it. So in order to provide that mobility, there is this odontoid process anteriorly in the axis vertebra, and the centrum of the atlas is greatly reduced. If the centrum would have been there, then this mobility would not have been possible. That would have impeded the movement of the movement in the neck region. So here greatly reduced centrum, here entirely the axis vertebra, second cervical is called the axis vertebra, and this axis vertebra has an odontoid process. And this is the centrum of the base of the this is the centrum or base, and the centrum or base has all other characters like the neural canal. So this is the neural canal through which the spinal cord passes. The transverse processes are reduced again. See, these are the transverse processes greatly reduced, because that again would have impeded the movement in the neck region. Then this is the neural arch and neural spine. Of course, this is not a spinous projection. This is called a neural crest. On the other side, we have again the vertebratorial canal. Vertebratorial canal, this is the vertebratorial canal. Vertebratorial on the sides. This is the vertebratorial canal, present one on each side. So, centrum, neural canal, neural arch, neural crest, reduced transverse processes, or altogether almost they are absent. Then entirely we have this odontoid process in the axis. Together, atlas and axis form a pivot joint. Next we come to the vertebrae of the chest region, the thoracic region, and next we come to the typical cervical, because there are 7 cervicals. First is atlas, second is axis, then we have still more, 5 more cervical vertebrae. They are called typical cervicals. Now, typical cervical has typically a centrum or base by which I am holding the vertebra. Then we have the neural canal, neural arch, neural spine. Then in addition, in the neural arch, we have a pair of projections, anteriorly and posteriorly. These are called gygapophyses. Those that are present anteriorly are called pre-gygapophyses. They are directed upwards. So you see, these two are directed upwards. They are called pre-gygapophyses, and these two are directed downwards. So they are called post-gygapophyses. So a pair of pre-gygapophyses and a pair of post-gygapophyses. This is the reduced neural spine. Again, there is the vertebratorial canal on the side. So all typical characters of a vertebra are present. That's why it's called typical cervical. So the next 5 cervical vertebrae after atlas and axis, they are called typical cervicals. Then we come to the thoracic, 12 or 13 vertebrae, and some of the anterior ones are easily identified by their long backwardly directed neural spines. So this is the centrum, and the nature of the centrum is called amphiplation in mammals. The nature of the centrum is called amphiplation. Amphiplation means flat on both the sides, anterior side and posterior side. The centrum is flat, as you can see clearly in this thoracic vertebra. The front side as well as back side of the centrum is flat. That is a characteristic feature of the mammalian centrum. So we have this centrum, amphiplation centrum, then there is this neural canal. No more this vertebratorial canal is present, because the vertebratorial canal was present in the cervical vertebrae only. Then we have this pre and post gygapophyses. You see, these are pre-gygapophyses because they are turned upwards, and these are post-gygapophyses because they are face downwards. So these are pre-gygapophyses, these are post-gygapophyses, and this is the long backwardly directed neural spine. And these are the short and blunt transverse processes. So these are well developed, short, stoutly built transverse processes. Now when the rib is attached, you see the rib cage is formed by the thoracic vertebrae, and number of ribs that are attached to the thoracic vertebra on both the sides. So you see, this is the transverse processes. The rib is double-headed, tuberculum and capitulum. The two heads of the rib are called. So T with T and C with C. That means the rib is attached at two surfaces of the thoracic vertebra. Tuberculum projection is attached to the transverse process, and the capitulum part is attached to the centrum. So like this, it is attached to the thoracic vertebra, one on other side, forming a curve, and then they are attached on the ventral side to the breastbone or sternum, so that we have a thoracic cage. Inside this thoracic cage or chest cavity, we have these important organs such as the lungs and the heart. So this is the anterior thoracic. Then we come to the posterior thoracic. The posterior thoracic, some of the 12 or 13 thoracic vertebrae, some of the anterior ones are called anterior thoracic. They are easily identified by their backwardly directed neural spine. And then we have several of these posterior thoracics. Now posterior thoracic, as usual, has an amphiplatian centrum. This is the centrum or base, which is flat on both the sides. So amphiplatian centrum. Then we have the neural canal. Then surrounding the neural canal, we have the neural arch. Then this is the vertically directed neural spine. So this here, you see there it was backwardly directed in the anterior thoracic. Posterior thoracic easily identified by the vertical direction in which the neural spine is projected. Then we have, as usual, the pre-diaphysis and the post-diaphysis. These are pre, these are post. Transverse processes again are short and blunt. These are transverse processes. So this is a thoracic, posterior thoracic vertebra. Then we come to the lumbar vertebra. Lumbar vertebra are present, lumbar vertebrae, 5 or 6, they are present in the lumbar region, that is the abdominal region. So this is again, this is an anterior lumbar. Anterior lumbar, as usual, has the amphiplatian centrum, neural canal, the neural arch, and then we have this pre-diaphysis and post-diaphysis, and in the middle there is the neural spine. Now, anterior lumbar is easily identified from the posterior lumbar from another process that is given of spine-like from the centrum, that is called hypophysis. So this is that hypophysis by which I am holding the vertebra. On the sides, we have again a pair of flat transverse processes. So this is the anterior lumbar. Coming to the posterior lumbar, now see the difference between the anterior lumbar and the posterior lumbar. The posterior lumbar has all the characters of the anterior lumbar, only the hypophysis, which was present in the, this is the hypophysis which was present in the anterior lumbar, is altogether absent. These are transverse processes. So no hypophysis is present here below the centrum. All other characters are similar. The neural canal, neural arch, these are pre-diaphysis, these are post-diaphysis. Now pre and post-diaphysis, wherever they are present, they provide additional points of articulation between the vertebrae. So pre and post, pre are located anteriorly, they are directed upwards or sideways, upwards and sideways, and posterior post-diaphysis are located behind, slightly downwards and sideways. Then we have in the lumbar vertebra as well as as well as in the thoracic. Uh, Projections from the neural arch, they are called anapophysis and metapophysis. Anapophysis are present below, so these are the small projections, they are called anapophysis, and these are the metapophysis. So metapophysis and anapophysis are projections given up from the neural arch to provide for, again, articulation between successive vertebrae. So this is the posterior lumbar, very easily differentiated from the anterior lumbar by the hypophysis, which is present in the anterior lumbar, absent, as you can see, absent in the posterior lumbar. Then we come to the sacral vertebrae. Now this is the sacral vertebrae. The vertebrae are all fused to form more or less a triangular synsacrum. This is that synsacrum. Now this synsacrum or compound sacral vertebrae has anteriorly a pair of broad projections. They are the transverse processes. These are the pregiaphysis. So pregiaphysis are present anteriorly, but the postgiaphysis are joined with the pregiaphysis of the next vertebrae. So this is the neural. This is the centrum. Then you have this neural canal. Then you have these neural spines. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 sacral vertebrae are present, not 5. So 4 neural spines can be easily identified. So each of them belongs to a particular sacral vertebra. And posteriorly, you have a pair of projections, the postgiaphysis. The centrum, as usual, is there, is flat on both the sides, so amphiplatian centrum. So this is the compound structure called synsacrum, and formed by the fusion of 4 sacral vertebrae. So this is called synsacrum. Then we should have the caudal vertebrae, but caudal vertebrae are 16 number because the rabbit possesses a fairly long tail. Longer the tail, more is the number of the caudal vertebrae. Tail vertebrae are called caudal vertebrae, and 16 of them are there. Unfortunately, you don't have an example of the caudal vertebra. The caudal vertebra, as usual, has anterior ones, have as usual the centrum and the neural arch maybe, and maybe the neural spine, but posterior ones lack all the characters. They only are seen by their centra. So caudal vertebrae, 16 in number, forming the long tail of the rabbit. Unfortunately, we don't have a caudal vertebra to explain it, to show it to you. Then we come to the limb bones and the girdles. First of all, forelimb bones. This is the forelimb bone of rabbit. It's called humerus. Forelimb bones. Coming to the forelimb bones, first of all, the forelimb has an upper arm, then we have the forearm, and then we have the wrist region, then we have the hand comprising the metacarpals, and fingers comprising each a number of number of phalanges, they are called. So we have therefore in the forelimb we have an upper arm region, the basal bone that is present is called the humerus. Now this humerus entirely has a prominent head by which it is, as you can see, the forelimb is attached to the pectoral girdle. Now this is the pectoral girdle, and the pectoral girdle of rabbit has on its lower side a cavity that is called the glenoid cavity, with which the head is articulated, forming almost a ball and socket joint. A ball and socket joint almost provides movement in any direction. So this is the head of the humerus, and by the head the humerus is attached to the glenoid cavity present on the lower side of the pectoral girdle. So this is the pectoral girdle to which the forelimb bone, the forelimb is attached, and to be precise, the upper arm bone humerus is attached. So this is the head. Then on either side of the head we have two projections. These are called they are called tuberosities. Greater tuberosity, this is the greater tuberosity, this is the lesser tuberosity, in between which there is a fossa that is called so the greater tuberosity and lesser tuberosity, in which there is a canal, there is a surface for attachment of the muscles, that is called the bicipital groove. So this is the bicipital groove. This is the greater tuberosity, lesser tuberosity, in which there is the bicipital groove, and this is the head. And below the head, on the opposite side, there is a projection that is called the deltoid ridge. So humerus has a head, then two tuberosities, greater tuberosities, greater and lesser. Then we have the bicipital groove in between them, bicipital groove, and then below the head, on the opposite side, there is the deltoid ridge. A prominent ridge is present that is called deltoid ridge, meant for the attachment of the deltoid muscle of the upper arm. So deltoid ridge. Which is the deltoid ridge? This is the deltoid ridge, a prominent projection. So this is the head, these are the tuberosities, this in between them, this is the bicipital groove, then we have the deltoid ridge. The middle region is called the shaft, and then posteriorly, see, there is a pulley-like structure with a hole above it. The pulley-like structure is called the trochlea. This is the trochlea. So below we have a pulley-like structure. Pulley, remember, a pulley is used to draw water from the well, so with the help of a rope. So pulley-like structure, that pulley-like structure is called trochlea, and trochlea, 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 and above the trochlea again there is an opening. This is that opening that is called the supratrochlear foramen. Supratrochlear foramen. trochlear foramen. Foramen means a small opening, but here the opening is fairly large in order to be called a foramen. So, this is that supratrochlear foramen, meant for the passage of an artery and a nerve. So, this is the upper arm bone humerus. Then this humerus is attached to the shoulder girdle on each side. So, this is a shoulder girdle or pectoral girdle. Pectoral refers to the chest region, of course. So, in the chest region on the sides, we have this pectoral girdle. The pectoral girdle has on the lower side this glenoid cavity, cup-shaped cavity, glenoid cavity, with which the head of the humerus is attached, forming a ball and socket joint. Then the broad part that is present in the is called the scapula. So this is this broad triangular part is called the scapula, and the projection that you see above it is crest-like, however, crest-like, but it is called the scapular spine. Then posteriorly, this region can be called the posterior region. There is a so this is that scapular side. The posterior region can be called suprascapular, but suprascapular is greatly reduced. So this is the pectoral girdle or the shoulder girdle that is present in the shoulder region or in the chest region, one on each side. So pectoral girdle. Then, so this humerus is attached to, head of the humerus is attached to the glenoid cavity. This is the glenoid cavity of the pectoral girdle. Then we have the next bone in the forearm. The bone that is present in the forearm is called radioulnar. So this is that radioulnar. This is the longer part. There is a longer part and there is a shorter part. The longer part is called ulnar. Shorter part is called the radius. And together, anteriorly in the elbow region, they form a notch. This is called notch. That is called the sigmoid notch. It is supposed to be S-shaped, so it is called sigmoid notch. Beyond the sigmoid notch, ulnar projects. This projection beyond the sigmoid notch. This is the sigmoid notch. This is called olecranon process. So this is the olecranon process. Belongs to the ulnar. And the backward projection. This is the olecranon. In our case, you see this elbow. In the elbow region, we have this olecranon process or kohuni. And attached all along its length, we have a shorter bone, less shorter bone that is called the radius. So this is the ulnar side, this is the radius side, and posteriorly they give off several projections. These are called epiphyses, and the epiphyses are meant for attachment to the next bone or bones in order. That is the bones of the wrist region. In the wrist region, there are 8 carpal bones, small bones arranged in 2 rows. We don't have the bones of the. Yes, we have. So this is again the ulnar side. This is the radius side. This is the sigmoid notch, and this is the olecranon process. And posteriorly, the radioulnar is attached to the carpal bones. See, these are the bones of the wrist region. They are by which I am holding the bone. These are called carpal bones. And beyond the wrist region, we have the palm region. Palm region bones bones are called the metacarpals, and each metacarpal carries several phalanges. So, see, there are five, you see, five metacarpals. Metacarpals are bones of the palm region. Five metacarpals. Each metacarpal carries several phalanges. There is a phalangeal formula to describe the number of these phalanges. The phalangeal formula for the hind limb, for the forelimb of rabbit is 2, 3, 3, 3, and 3. 2, 3, 3, 3, and 3. So this is the palm region. Then we have this fingers. Next we come to the hind limb. Now hind limbs, we have two hind limbs. The hind limbs are attached on each side to a pelvic girdle. Now this is one half of the pelvic girdle. In the examination only usually one half is set for identification. You see, each half, why half? Because each half possesses almost these similar structures or similar bones. Now, the two halves are attached along a common surface that is called the pubic symphysis, because this part is called pubis. Each half possesses three parts: pubis, ischium, ilium. First of all, ilium, ischium, and pubis. Ilium is long, flat. You see, this is the ilium, this is the ischium below on the sides, ischium, and this is the pubis. And in between, there is a large hole that is called the obturator foramen. Through this obturator foramen, nerves and blood vessels pass. So this is the obturator foramen. Is fairly a large opening in order to be called a foramen. Foramen generally means a small opening. So ilium, ischium, and pubis. And on the sides, the ilium and ischium contribute jointly to another cavity that is called the acetabulum cavity. Now with this acetabulum cavity, the head of the thigh bone, this is the thigh bone, the strongest bone, the largest bone, that's called the femur, is attached. So this is the femur has a prominent head to one side. The femur of the head of the femur is attached to the acetabulum like this, the acetabulum cavity of each half of the pelvic girdle. And the two halves of the pelvic girdle are united along a common region that is called pubic symphysis. Symphysis meaning a union. So the two halves are united along a middle line that is called the pubic symphysis. And this is the acetabulum cavity, which is the head of the femur is articulated. So next we come to the thigh bone, which is the largest and the strongest bone in the body. The femur anteriorly, thigh bone, femur anteriorly has a prominent head to one side, and surrounding the head there are three projections. They are called trochanters: greater trochanter, lesser trochanter, greater trochanter, lesser trochanter, and third trochanter. So surrounding the head on three sides, at the entry end of the femur, we have these projections. All projections, wherever they are present on a bone, are meant for the attachment of muscles. So this is the greater trochanter present above the head. Then there is the lesser trochanter present below the head, and there is a third trochanter placed away from the head. So this is the head surrounding which these trochanters or projections are present. Middle region can again be called the shaft, and posteriorly there is a pair of such projections. They are called condyles. This condylar region is, in between the condyles there is a canal that is called the patellar groove. Patella refers to the kneecap, and the kneecap, carrying this kneecap, carried by ligament, kneecap slides along this condylar groove. So this is the condylar groove. So these two are the condyles. They are meant for articulation with the next bone, that is the bone of the shank region. The bone or bones of the shank region are called tibiofibular. See, it's a compound bone. The longer, stouter part is called the tibia. So this is the tibia part, and this is the feeble part, small, feeble, thin, feeble part is called the fibula. So anteriorly they are almost free, but posteriorly they are fused with each other, and the anterior region of this tibiofibular is meant for articulation with the two condyles of the femur. The femur posteriorly has a pair of condyles, rounded projections, they are called condyles, and the anterior region of this tibiofibula is meant to form an articulation, so like this. So this is the tibia part, stouter, stronger, and this is the feeble or the fibula part. Anteriorly they are free, but posteriorly they are almost fused with each other. Posteriorly the projections are called epiphyses. They are meant for attachment to the next bone or bones of the ankle region. Ankle region, you see, as next we come to the bones of the ankle region. They are called tarsal bones, and prominent among these tarsal bones are a pair of tarsals. They are called astragalus and calcaneum. Now, what we know as the heel is actually our calcaneal process. So this is that calcaneum, and on the side we have the astragalus. So astragalus and calcaneum are the two prominent tarsal bones, the tarsal region. Then we have the sole region. In the sole region we have 4 metatarsals, because the number of toes in the hind limb of rabbit is only 4. So we have 4 metatarsals, long slender bones. Then we have these toes. The phalangeal formula of the toe of the hind limb is 0, because first finger is absent, 0, then 3, 3, 3, 3. So we have only 4 fingers, while there are 5 fingers in the forelimb. There are 4 toes in the hind limb, 4 metatarsals, 4 fingers. The phalangeal formula is 2, 3, 3, and 3. So this is the hind leg. So this is all about the rabbit skeleton. And if you compare the skeleton of rabbit with the human skeleton, the divisions, the bones, they are almost similar. Similar bones are present. Maybe there is a slight difference in the number of these bones in the different regions. In the chest region, as you can see, the thoracic region, the chest region, the thoracic case that is formed, meant to protect the lungs and the heart. So the basic plan is same as in the rabbit, because both are mammals, both have similar divisions, similar bones. Maybe the number of these bones varies. Depending upon the size of the body, the length of the bones will vary. But in case of man, both in the forelimb as well as in the hind limb, we have 5 fingers. In case of rabbit, we have 5 in the forelimb, but 4 in the hind limb. But in case of the human skeleton, in the human limbs, we have the same number of fingers or toes. The phalangeal formula is same, 2 for both the forelimb as well as the hind limb. 2, that means 2 phalanges are present in the first toe or finger, and then the rest of the fingers and toes have 3 phalanges each. So the phalangeal formula is 2, 3, 3 and 3. So the divisions are almost similar, bones are almost similar, maybe the length of the bones, the stoutness of the bones are different, and the hands and the hands and the hind leg, the number of toes, number of fingers, number of toes varies slightly between the two. Otherwise, both the rabbit skeleton and human skeleton have a similar built up.